Hello, everyone. I'm Martha Engber, host of Vigilant Positivity, a blog and podcast meant to decrease polarization by uniting Americans through civil discussion that leads to common ground. Thanks to those of you who've tuned in. Please feel free to subscribe and grow the Common Ground movement. Every month, I try to do a citizen spotlight to cast a light on other Americans on both sides of the political spectrum who are working hard to decrease polarization. Today, I'm talking with Swati Srivastava. Hello, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
A software engineer turned independent writer, voiceover artist, and filmmaker, my guest, Swati, is the head of Tired and Beat Up Productions. 2 years ago, she established the Long Island chapter of Crossing Party Lines, a common ground movement organization that works to foster civil discussion among those of differing viewpoints. She's not only the director of visual media for CPL, but also part of the leadership team at her local chapter of Braver Angels, another national civil discussion blog. A natural at partnerships, she worked with CPL, Braver Angels, her local cinema arts center, and the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship to create a series of conversations, film screenings, and workshops. An example of the last is a workshop called Cultivating Courageous Connections, which combines BA's Depolarize Within workshop with improv, games, and play. Besides moderating conversations, Swati uses media to connect people despite their differences. She believes projecting that message could greatly decrease polarization if employed more frequently and to a much wider audience. She's created a variety of videos toward that end, Cultivating Courageous Connections, The Secret Sauce, The Braver Angels Way, being just a few. She is currently working on a new bridging media project called The Independent Spirit. So nice to have you and so many questions to go over. Let's start with the first. I'm going to begin by saying that I recently started an improv class, and you're taught to listen to the story someone starts and build off of it. My two thoughts about the experience were these. The first, that you really have to listen to what others say rather than waiting for them to stop so you can say something you've prepared. And the second was, this would be a really fun way to reach people and teach them how to connect with those of different political viewpoints. It's a lot more fun, and it's especially a lot more fun than just talking, which tends to be serious. So I was excited to hear about the workshops you held that used improv and play. Tell us about that workshop. Where did you get the inspiration to try the idea, and how did it go?
Thank you. Yes, improv is very, very fun. And I'm a trained actor. I'm an actor's director. So improv is a very important tool of actors, directors. That's just part of the toolkit. And for a while, since I've been in the bridging world and I've participated in conversations, I moderate conversations myself, many things. I One thing I became aware of, as wonderful and important as these conversations are to bridge divides, there were two things that bothered me. One was they're sometimes overly focused on our red-blue identity. And the other thing that I was very sort of looking at was they're very serious, like you're just saying, very serious conversations. People come in and they discuss politics. And I was thinking, we need to have more fun with these things. We need to bring in
Yeah.
humor and fun. And so when I designed this workshop, so the core of this workshop here was the Depolarizing Within, which is the Braver Angels workshop, 90 minutes. A person came, moderator ran that. I developed the wrapper around it, and that's what I wanted to experiment with and play with. So as soon as people came, for the first things generally when you go to a workshop, you're given a little name tag, people say, put your name on it. And we did the same thing, except we said instead of your own name, choose a historical or fictional or inspirational character that you want to be called by today. So
Oh,
immediately loosening this, oh, I'm this person, I belong to this party, and I'm gonna tell you everybody what I opinion.
yeah.
No, let's just come into the place of play and fun and ease. So immediately people are giggling and thinking what they're going to be called today, and the atmosphere is changed from the get-go. There was food, there was music, there was, of course, this name card, and then we brought them in the conversation and the workshop, and I showed one of my videos, the cultivating courageous connections. So it was also fun, and there's cartoons in there doing funny things, so there's all that. And then I launched into our first improv game. And this is a very common, very used improv game. It's actually called Build a Story. And what I said to people was, okay, we're gonna start like once upon a time, and now we're gonna build a story. And the idea is that we will build a story one sentence at a time. So people are in a group. And since you've done improv, Martha, I believe you know the one most important rule of improv, yes and, which is once something is said or done, it becomes the new reality. Now you have to build on top of it, which is where
Right.
the creativity is. And you have to be very engaged and very listening to do that.
Yeah.
And so we did that. So we started with once upon a time, and I just gave through the prompt out, I met Brad Pitt on the subway. And now it just has got nothing to do with politics. It's just this fun thing. So people start, and already people are giggling and laughing and thinking about what is this, and somebody says something, and then you have to build on what they said. You can't just think about what you thought about 10 minutes ago and respond to that. You're building a story. It has to be the next thing that comes in the story after what the previous person just said. So you have to be open, listening, engaged, not in your head, not thinking about your response or your preconceived notions. And it immediately loosened people. There was an environment of camaraderie and fun, and it didn't really matter what people believed. We're building something together. And that's the other part of it. Building something together. No matter what perspective, what opinion, something new is emerging. I think all of the stuff that we actually do in our very serious workshops, building something together, bringing our ideas, was being fulfilled in this very silly improv game, just with more fun and more ease. And it really set the stage we did some serious work as well. But people then later, when we did the debriefing, they said how much they enjoyed not having an identity red and blue, not being totally in their head thinking about serious things, but really playing with each other. That's something we've forgotten.
So all I have to say is I want to do this. I want this workshop. I think it would be great. And it's hard to convey. So if you're listening, it's hard to convey exactly how hard it is to listen. So it makes you realize that most of the time you're really not listening to other people. You're waiting for a chance to reply with some other thought that's in your head. And so improv really does that. And then the sense of play is just amazing. So, do you think you'll be able to hold more of these workshops across America? And what other ideas do you have for getting Americans to, see one another as humans, but, more than enemies?
Right. So, well, I certainly hope that there'll be more workshops like this. I I do not consider myself by any means a workshop creator. I mean, I'm a media person who's got background in media and film and art and improv, so I like to do some of that stuff. We did write a report, of what happened at our workshop, sent it to Bravery Angels National, and they have, I suppose they've seen it. But I do know that some of the other chapters, like another chapter in New York, the Westchester chapter, tried to do the same thing. They brought improv in it, and they also had some success. So I so thoroughly believe that fun games and play to involve the heart and the body is so important and quite missing in this particular bridging world right now. And so the other things, of course, for me is that as you know, I'm into media. I make films, I develop media, and I have been working on many various media projects, investing my time and energy. That's something else that's missing. Compelling narratives, stories, again with fun and heart and humor. We're so serious. We stopped having fun about things. We take ourselves so seriously all the time. So all of those things to kind of bring in from with having media projects, do that is something we need. So I'm developing that, and I hope that I'll find more, partners and sponsors to work together with and bring some of that out to the world.
Well, I think it's safe to say that if people do feel that they could contact you, and of course your information will be on my blog and it will be on the YouTube channel comments, then they can get ideas for their areas. That's
Absolutely.
correct?
Absolutely. Please feel free to
Wonderful.
contact.
Okay, so let's go back a bit. By your accent, I assume you're from elsewhere, so tell us where you came from, as well as when and why, and what does America mean to you?
Right. So yes, you're right. I grew up in India and I came here to America as a very young adult, but I was an adult. And wow, so America. So now I'm this year, it's my 25th year in America.
Oh,
So it's my silver jubilee and I'm celebrating it.
okay.
um, I when I was in India, I really wanted to be in America. I heard fabulous stories of America. I wanted to be here. I wanted to do things. I wanted to find myself a space, establish myself, find myself my voice as a woman. Many things that I accomplished here, I I wasn't able to do in India. So I think I'm in great debt of America. I am an immigrant, and a lot of the time, I think immigrants, like many immigrants, I have a very visceral sense of pride and patriotism. I became a citizen a few years ago, and took me 18 years to become a citizen. First, I was on a
Oh,
visa, work visa, then I
congratulations.
became a green card holder, then I became a citizen, the whole thing. And so in this citizenship ceremony, 80 other countries represented, I took my oath. And I'm sorry, it's just always, I can never talk about this day without getting emotional about it. It's so I took my oath to protect and serve the Constitution. And I did not take it lightly then, and I do not take it lightly now. I mean, this is my duty, and I'm a patriot, and this is why I've invested so much of myself in this work that I do.
Are you worried about your status as an American at this time?
No, and yes. No, because like I just said, I enumerated, I did everything by the books. I did everything up and up. I mean, all my papers, my documents, everything just completely legally, the whole trip time. Okay, so there's that one story of it. So no, it doesn't personally bother me. There's nothing in my past that I'm worried about. But the yes of it is, I mean, the environment today, we are living in an environment which is the tide is not very positive towards immigrants, and there's always impacts of that come. I mean, I've been here a long time. I mean, I've seen racism. I've heard comments. I've heard the comments of "go back to your effing country." I mean, these things have happened to me, and that's something that happens occasionally. You kind of deal with it. The other Some of the stuff that's happening sometimes, I think the worry is whether we are when I hear, especially when I hear about the citizenship, which has been such a sacrosanct thing in America, when I hear about denaturalizing people
Mm.
based on certain criteria, that then makes me think of whether there's any slide into the McCarthy era, things like that. But then I'm very well trained in the depolarizing world, and I think, you know what, that's a slippery slope fallacy. Don't go in the slippery slope fallacy. Also, I trust our institutions. So the Supreme Court in the 1960s passed a lot of, there was a lot of rulings that made it very, very hard to denaturalize people because of their political beliefs or something. So it's not very comfortable right now. I think a lot of immigrants like myself who came, paid all the dues, legal, everything, we're not happy, not only out of compassion for some of the other people who are going through it, but also for ourselves. But well, all the more reason for me to continue to do this work.
Yeah, so true. Absolutely. And for coming on and speaking about it, I think that that's also really a wonderful thing that you're doing.
Thank you.
So when did you become aware that there's a deep divide among Americans, and what do you think the source is? For example, when you come here, you don't necessarily, you probably didn't have a good sense of any kind of political kind of feeling, and it took you a while before you sensed things.
Yes, absolutely. When I came, so this is something I always say that when you're an immigrant, one of the advantages of being an immigrant, and I think it's a pretty strong advantage, is you almost always see things from somewhat of an outsider's perspective. And it's not entrenched, it's not like people would say sometimes to me, oh, our family they were Kennedy Democrats or whatever, or Reagan Republican, and be like, okay, well, I didn't have any family here. I just showed up here, so I am building it as I go. So there is definitely, I did not have that. And so one of the things that I did, I'm very social, so I have a lot of social gatherings in my house. And people will come, and I have friends all across the political spectrum, still to this day, good friends on both sides. And something I noticed, so we would come together, we'll have some political conversations, then we will move on to the dining room and have dinner. And I think this was in 2017, I think after Trump had won the first time. The one of my friends, his very liberal leaning friends, they were, of course, so there was this debate going on, discussion going on. Okay, I don't mind whatever that's going on, but it was veering into a place where I started sensing that there was sort of almost contempt. There was a chill, there was a coldness which didn't exist before. And then one of our friends, I said, okay, let's move to the dining table, let's go eat and have dinner. And this person said, I will take the blue side, please.
Oh,
And I was just struck that this is my home. These are my friends. They all know each other. And this person doesn't want to sit with this other person because he will take the blue side. And I realized, wow, something really is shifting and has shifted. And that was the beginning. And then it's been worse and worse to the point that I think in some cases, I'm the only friend of sort of, they are only meeting at my home now. Most of my liberal friends have now lost their conservative friends and vice versa. And this is the place where they will come to even be in each other's presence. And I'm like, wow, that's weird, but that's what's happening. And to answer your question, what's fueling it? Everything. I mean, look at the state of our media. You cannot move around in the world to turn on a radio, cable TV, social media. Everywhere we are breathing in what I recently heard, fog, the air of fog. I heard it from Derate the Hate podcast by Wilk Wilkinson, which is another Braver Angels podcast. And it's called, and he said, fear, outrage, and grievance. This is what we are just breathing constantly. It's all the time us being told the us versus them story. We are good and they're evil and they're traitors and they're enemies. Choose your they. So, of course, where do we run? That's what we are. We're drinking that Kool-Aid constantly. This is the world we live in. So, okay. So then we get the system is being designed to get the results it gives. And that's the result. We're completely polarized.
well, when you adopted the belief that we need to depolarize America, rather than lean harder into one political party over another, what reception did you get from family and friends? Were they all supportive? Or were some people cynical, as in, that'll never happen? Or did they think you were being naive to think kindness and understanding can win in such an ugly political environment?
Right. First of all, I do lean hard. In the election season, I make political ads for the Democrats. I'm a media person. I mean, I have to pay my bills. It pays my bills. Now, there are ads that I have refused to make because it's just been unpalatable to me. And there are ads I make because I make strong media. Um, if there was a purple party, and I really wish that there was, I probably would never make another ad for either the blue side or the red side. I will just stick with the purple side and make those ads. So I do lean hard because I have my own views, and we only get two choices in this country, right? But I have invested so much of myself, my own personal time, resources, energy in developing, in doing this work, which is, as you can hear, is really important for me. And so when I started on this path, well, like I said, I've got no family here, so there's nobody about that. But I have my husband, who is also an immigrant. He's actually British, and he is James Bond. He's like, go forth, do what you need to do. So he's fully on board about doing this. Friends, Yes, I heard all kinds of remarks from my friends. I think it's from some friends. I mean, I think they view me with a mixture of awe on one's end to complete cynicism on the other. I don't think anybody doubts my integrity. I think they all trust that I'm doing it from a very good place and and intelligence. But there's this thing of, oh, this is a unicorn. She's somebody, but they're not people like her. Or people on the other side, choose the other side, are too disingenuous, and they will, you're this is a, just this is not going to go anywhere. It's not going to be fruitful. So I've got all of that. One person said to me one time that what I was doing reminded me, because she was so hurt, not by the word, but really frustration of the people who were trying to make friends with the Nazis in 1930s Germany. That was the harshest remark I got. So I hear all kinds of things, but when uh, you got to be a little thick-skinned when you're working on the forefront of change.
Hmm. Well, uh, I would assume so. What other comments have you gotten? I've found that people don't trust that. They don't trust a kindness and a approach. They don't trust that it's possible to support all Americans, even if you disagree with them.
Yes, yeah, I think that this is certainly very much the case. Now, like I said, I think somehow, for some reason, I get a pass, maybe because I'm an immigrant, because they see me that I'm very different. So I don't think any of my friends mistrust my objectives in this, that I'm really coming in a place of balance and unbiased nature, etc. But yeah, I mean, I will hear things. I really have heard things, very cynical things, and they're like, you know what, you can go ahead and do that. But then, of course, it'll keep falling into. But look, my favorite one is people will send me, of course, their side, their version of the story. And so, of course, this is the challenge. Now I have to stop what I'm doing, and I have to. Often people are sharing something very superficial, which took them 3 minutes from Twitter or 30 seconds. But then I can't respond like that. I mean, I'm not going to just respond. So I will then spend the time, sometimes sitting late at night, to go through in the depth of that story, to understand it from both sides, because I don't know every story from every side, and then write back in a very methodical way. My friends laugh at me that I'm the person who writes long. And I'm like, yes, because I don't speak in tweets. You can't make a cohesive conversation, a nuanced thing in a short form.
Mm.
So that's going on. I don't know. I don't know. It's difficult. But my home still happens to be the place where there's peace. As in, when people come in, they're respectful. They're respectful. They still engage. And some of them have started coming to our conversations, which is great. Once they experience that, because
Yeah.
talk is cheap. The experience matters. So when they come to a conversation, when they experience a workshop, that's when I see the temperature slightly going down. And then I say,
Yeah.
okay, just come back. Just come back. Just come back. Don't take my word for it. Just come back and experience it. And that makes the difference.
So this feeds into the next story I was going to ask you. As in your bio, you mentioned you believe media can be used to a much more effective and extensive use to convey the common ground message that we are better together and to dismiss the idea that we are enemies.
Yes.
So what is the message to Americans that you would like to give, and how willing do you think they are to hear it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that one of the most important books I've read in my life is called Sapiens by Professor Harari.
Yes.
It's also called History of Humankind. And he charts the history of Homo sapiens and kind of talks about how this biped mammal became the dominant force on planet Earth over the course of time. And what he proposes, which I think I agree with wholeheartedly, is that this is our capacity and ability to tell stories.
Yes, that was fascinating. Fascinating concept.
Absolutely. I mean, we have told stories since time immemorial. We are tribal. So if you look at the caves, in old caves, prehistoric, ancient caves, people are drawing something, making a sense of who we are. And this is our story. And we can then hold this fort. And religions, massive stories that we have told about ourselves and about others.
Mhm.
This human rights story, democracy story. What else are they? I mean, it's not like rice. Rice I can eat. It's tangible. But human rights, can't put it in my pocket. It's a story, a very good story, but a story nonetheless that we have told ourselves, we the people. Story. America. What else is it? A story. I mean, the story of America that's told to the world, the story that I heard as a young child, and I wanted to come to America. It did not matter to me that America was a particular physical place on the planet. It mattered to me that America was a story and I wanted to be part of it. So I think storytelling is so important and so crucial part of this narrative. The story we are hearing, like we just talked about, the us versus them story. They are bad, they are evil, they're not worth living, they are traitors and monsters and enemies. That's the story we hear, that's what we believe. But we can counter that narrative. And the story that I want to tell for people to understand is we are far more similar. We have far more commonality than we are different. That's the story I experience over and over again in the conversations and the workshops and all the things I've been doing for the past 4 years. We are a nation of purple people with
Yes.
with red and blue voices on the extremes, very loud, very vocal, and that sells because fear sells. So that of course we're listening to all of those very voices that are magnified and uplifted. If we have to build the majority of the moderates, that's the narrative I want America to understand also, is that this is a country of moderate people who get two choices every election. And then they just kind of side, whether nicely or not nicely, with the particular side that they kind of think, if we had more choices, that would make a difference. If there's so many ways to do that. And I do think that Americans are willing to hear it. There was a poll done, I think about 4 years ago. I can't remember who did it, but anyway, I can send a link to later. And then the idea was they said that the biggest percentage of Americans that now belong to a third party, and this third party, they called it the exhausted majority.
Oh, right.
70%, 68 to 70% of people are exhausted majority, but the extremes have taken over. They have captured the fort, so to speak, and we have to take it back. I think people do want to know that. And when people find that out, they get empowered. We get empowered. And that's the story I want to tell.
Well, that feeds into my last question, which is what would it take to overcome the conflict entrepreneurs? These are the people, I guess you would say, the politicians, political parties, political pundits, big business interests, and hostile nations that have so much more money, reach sophisticated tools, and targeting messaging to create those stories that divide Americans. How do you overcome that?
Right. Well, I think two things. First of all, I think, like I said, what I have experienced is if there was a legitimate third party in America, multiple parties in America, the first part of your question was politicians, political pundits, all of that becomes much weaker if that was the case. So I feel that ranked choice voting, transferable votes,
Mhm.
is so essential for democracy at this point that when you vote, you can vote for the number one person, okay, let's say a Green Party candidate. And then if they don't get the majority, then your votes all go to your second candidate, second choice. Those things are so valuable so people can vote their conscience. And that's something that has to happen, of course, because the politicians are in the way of that. That'll be like asking turkeys to vote for Thanksgiving. So it's not likely to happen anytime soon. So then, of course, we fall back into the thing, which is where we rebuild the majority of the moderates, where moderates start going up and moderates choose moderate politicians and empower the politicians to choose moderate policy. So that's number one for me. But number two, something that I think a lot about, and we're actually working on this. We have just been started in our Long Island Alliance of Braver Angels to do this. So there was something called, and some of your audience may know about this, fairness, the fairness doctrine, which
Mhm.
was something repealed in, it was an act, it was a regulation, I think. Um, it could have been a law actually in the 1980 by the until the 1980s, and it required any broadcasters who were using the public airwaves to actually bring a contrarian view and speak and show the other side as well, not just your side, not just something one side, but the multiple sides of any controversial issue. And that ended in 1987 or 88. And since then, it's been a free for all. Cable news, of course, they didn't even fall under the blanket of broadcasters. But you can go to your choice, your bubble, and get all your news from that bubble. And social media has now made it even worse, where the algorithms can just push the narrative, just drink this Kool-Aid, the red one or the blue one, and you never exit that. So what do? We are writing up right now, and actually I'm a very important part of this. We've written up something called the Promote Cognitive Diversity Act language, or another word for it is Make America Think Again Act. And what we are saying is that social media companies have got a special exemption right now. It's called the Section 230 of the Communications Act. A special exemption that New York Times does not get, CNN does not get, Fox doesn't get, that they can just put anything out there. It doesn't matter, and they're not considered publishers, which means they can never be sued. So what we are saying is, okay, well, you got that. But what this particular proposal is saying is that the algorithm is the publisher. Because one thing I search for something and something comes up. Okay, that's one thing. But then the algorithm pushes more and more and more similar content to me, and social media companies make money off that. So why is the algorithm not a publisher? So what we're proposing in this act is the algorithm will be considered a publisher, which means the social media companies can be sued then, unless they also show their audience contrarian oppositional content. So multiple viewpoint, a diversity of viewpoint in whatever content they're pushing. That should be a requirement for social media companies to continue to function. That's something else we're working on, and we're sending it out. And we'll see if we can get any partners for that.
Well, tell us, at what level are you sending this out? Is this something that you're drafting with your legislators from Long
No,
Island, or?
actually, what we know, not at all legislators, what we are doing right now is this is the Braver Angels New York chapter.
Right.
We have come up with this, and we have drafted something, and we sent it to Braver Angels National about 3 weeks ago or something. We haven't heard from them. We know they're very busy. People are very busy, but we're not beholden to them. This is something we want to discuss with anybody who wants to discuss it and bring allies and partners to that. So anybody you think of.
Well, there you go. Anybody who's listening to this who likes the idea of forcing social media companies and cable news channels to actually change their algorithms so that they become more fair and less directed toward negative messaging, then you know who to contact. So this brings us to the end of our interview, and I just want to say it's been marvelous talking with you.
Thank you
And
very much.
so
Likewise.
I'm always very interested and inspired by people who come with messages of positivity and common ground in supporting Americans. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you very
Uh,
much.
so thanks again to those of you who listened to this episode. You can find a post and transcript of today's interview on my blog, vigilantpositivity.wordpress.com. Please join our cause. Thank
Yes,
you so much.
and before we end, I forgot to say for your viewers, this has nothing to do with me, but something I saw only this week. There's a movie out apparently called The Elephant in the Room. It's a romantic comedy on Amazon Prime. I think it's by Eric Bork and produced by Bridge Entertainment Labs, which are getting into this whole let's create bridging media. I saw this movie. It's about a very liberal woman falling in love with a man who's voted for Trump. And I enjoyed it, and I would recommend your viewers, your audience, to watch it. I've got no stake in it, but I enjoyed it, so I'm just sharing it with you.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm all for people seeing one another um, as common citizens rather than enemies. So that sounds
Absolutely.
like a good one.
Okay.
Well,
Yes.
thank you so much for talking with us and meeting today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Martha.
Bye, everyone. Have a lovely day.
Bye-bye.